Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good week. It's pretty warm out there and pretty warm out there. I'm guessing if you're playing soccer, but it's summer. Hey, why not? I guess we'll cope for a few months.
Yeah, I'm trying not to complain too much about it because I spend 7 or 8 months of the year complaining that it's too cold. So trying to get outside as much as I can these days, and getting out to a couple soccer games. I have my own soccer games to play. It's my favorite month of the year, June. So happy to have arrived in it finally.
Yeah, sounds good. And as we like to do at this point in time, if you are a new listener, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about, Scott?
So we focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and the players from the city's soccer community, from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional level.
Yeah. And this week, it's going to probably be a little bit of an abbreviated episode. We don't have a scheduled guest interview, but there's a lot of soccer stuff going on right now. So we thought we would do a bit of a recap of what's happened in the past week and what we can expect in the next few days. So I think we're going to just go with that and then take it from there. Yeah,
I know it'll be a little bit of a shorter editing period for you, I imagine, which is nice. But no, hopefully we'll get a guest for the next episode.
Sounds good. Well, Scott, do you want to start off with Foothills WFC? They've had a good run, kind of not unexpected. I think we maybe take for granted how good they really are. But do you want to talk a little bit about sort of where they've been at? I know they had a bit of a road trip.
Yeah, they just got back recently from the United States where they had 2 games. They won both of those. So Foothills WFC is now 3-0 in the regular season. They've scored 10 goals and conceded 2 in their 3 games thus far. So they're in first place in the West Division, or the Northwest Division, with Santa Clarita Blue Heat, their perennial rivals, kind of breathing down their neck in second. Maya Jones leads in scoring for Foothills with 4 goals from those 3 games. And Isabel Monk and Georgia Wilson follow behind her with 2 each. So they won both of their recent games in the U.S., outscoring their opponents 8-1. They started the weekend off with a comfortable 5-0 win over Reno Vikings. Maya Jones recorded another brace in that game after starting her campaign with a brace against LA the week before. It was actually, the final score was 5-0, but I believe it was only 1-0 or maybe even 0-0 at half. So it was really a strong second half performance against Reno to generate a 5-goal lead and leave the pitch quite comfortably with the 3 points. And they followed that up with a 3-1 win in their second game, which was against FC Arizona. Isabel Monk had a really good game. She scored 2 goals, one of which was from like 25 yards out. There's a video on Foothills WFC's Twitter of the goal, which if you follow them, I'd recommend giving that goal a view. It was a pretty nice strike. Yeah, a good weekend. I thought it was noticeable that Foothills had to come from behind again in that game against FC Arizona. They did trail 1-0, but overall to come from behind and win 3-1 after a game, I think it was the night before or 2 nights before, playing in the heat most likely. So a good weekend for them, and yeah, they're still unbeaten. Actually, if you look back to last year when they went 10-0 in the regular season, they're now 13 games unbeaten in the regular UWS season. So that's quite the run that they're on. Another noticeable tidbit was that Grace Storty was named the UWS Defensive Player of the Week. She was one who really stood out to me in their home opener, their season opener the week before at Broadview. She was the one who I talked about a bit in the last episode. Did some really good dribbling down the right wing, played in some really good crosses, and got an assist in that game. So, yeah, she's had a really good strong start to the season, as have Maya Jones, Isabel Monk, and Georgia Wilson. And Foothills will be playing at home this Sunday against FC Arizona. So a rematch against the team they just beat. that game is 3 p.m. at Broadview on Sunday.
You mentioned this in advance about Maya Jones and about her run of play lately, and her form's been really good. Do you think this could lead to any call-ups potentially?
Well, that was there was a cheeky kind of tweet from Foothills WFC after her brace in that game against Reno, where they said Maya Jones with her second of the night and fourth of the season, a great start to the summer for the 2022 MVP. ... Lots of former UWS soccer players heading to the FIFA World Cup this summer. Maya is ready, and then they tweeted at Canada Soccer. So I don't know if that was in jest or not, but she clearly is having a great season already. She has Canada experience at the U20 and U17 level. I don't actually know if she's been called up to a senior women's team camp or not. I wasn't able to find that out in the brief period before we recorded this, but I don't know. I mean, Canada's obviously a great team, and that would be a tough roster to break into, but you would think at the very least she would be on their radar at this point.
Yeah, I think being on the radar is probably there. Hey, you never know, but that would be really cool if it happened. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But there's no question she's playing really well right now for Foothills.
No, and she's only 21, but she's been on the UWS team for, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. So she's clearly been around, and she's, I think, very comfortable with the game at this level. And I think she's one of those who will really benefit from a domestic pro league in the coming years.
Let's move on to the Cavs, and they played on the weekend. They played Forge, and it was a 1-1 draw. Unfortunately, they conceded late. Scott, any comments about what you saw?
Yeah, they once again gave up a lead, and once again they drew. So that's their 6th draw of the CPL season, remarkably from 8 games now. And I think this one was probably the most heartbreaking of all, because they were leading 1-0 in the 93rd minute, and then 94th minute it all came unraveling. And who else but Kyle Becker to kind of stab that ball into the box, and it got a flick. It was, I believe it was Jordan Hamilton.
Yeah, it was Jordan Hamilton. Yeah.
On it, but a great ball in from Kyle Becker. Jordan Hamilton kind of ghosts in, gets his boot on it, and it just goes past Carducci. So 1-1 draw. Really disappointing result for Cavalry. Obviously, it's against a tough team, but given that they were leading so late, it's really gut wrenching for Cavalry, who played pretty well. I mean, their goal was really well worked. It was a long ball toward the corner from Bradley Camden, some good work from Camargo near the corner flag. He laid it off, and then Jose Escalante whipped in a really nice cross that eventually fell to Ali Musi, who volleyed it in. Really well aimed strike, bottom corner, to go up 1-0. But unfortunately, once again this season, Cavalry wasn't able to hold on to a lead, and they left the pitch with just a single point.
I watched the match, and I thought the first half went really well. And then when we got into the second half, when you have a team of the quality of Forge and they're down, they're going to push. You know they're going to push. And so there was definitely I felt they were taking the play to Cavalry, but it seemed like they kind of had it more or less under control. But that cross in by Becker, like, geez, it was like perfect. Like, you just can't argue with that. It was just a play like that. It was picture perfect. Of course, still heartbreaking at the time it happened, and the fact that it resulted in a draw. But yeah, that was a really good ball, basically.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the first time I've seen Becker put in a ball against Cavalry that causes issues. He still is one of the best central midfielders in the CPL, and I think you see when he plays in a ball like that exactly what he offers still. But no, I agree with you. A Forge goal did seem to be coming. They'd hit the post. I think it was around the 65th or 70th minute. And before that, Carducci was called to make a save a couple of times. And yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if you like it is a very gut wrenching result, but maybe you could say it was it was a 1-1 game.
Yeah, and upcoming this week we have Vancouver FC kind of must win. Like, it just feels like this is one of those ones that got to get past these ties, and you got to get 3 points at home, I would think.
Yeah, Vancouver is definitely struggling. I mean, they're second from bottom in the league table as we're recording this. And they've conceded the most goals out of any CPL team this season. I think 15 goals against, although 6 of those were obviously from that one crazy 6-3 game against Pacific. But Vancouver seems one of the few CPL teams that is a bit vulnerable at the moment. And obviously they're new coming into this league. Cavalry, like you said, they need to turn ties into wins. They've tied Vancouver already this season, but this time you have to expect them to, as long as they play like they've shown they can, it should be a comfortable win.
Yeah, you would think so. And I think almost under any circumstance, if they don't get 3 points, it's going to be a major disappointment. But
yeah. I mean, once again at the final whistle, after the draw against Forge, you could hear the boos, right? On the One Soccer broadcast, we could hear the boos coming from the stands. So fans are getting restless. Cavalry is currently they're 4th place at the moment, although tied for 4th with Valor on 9 points each. But there's starting to be a separation between the top and the bottom halves of the table, which we've seen quite a lot in the CPL. So at the moment, Cavalry are 4 points behind York United, who are in 3rd, 7 points back of Forge, who are in 1st, and 6 points back of Pacific, who are in 2nd. So if they want to start climbing the table, they really have to start getting 3 points per game. They have to start getting wins. And I think Vancouver it would be a good time and a good place, and it would be a good opportunity to start a good run, because Cavalry have played well at home, but they haven't been getting results, and this could be a good way to change that.
Yeah, you can't work your way up the table the 1 point at a time. So
no.
Let's move on to League One Alberta, and let's talk about the men's division. Scott, you want to give us a bit of an update of where things are at?
Yeah, it's still pretty, early days in League One Alberta, but it looks like Edmonton BTB, they're leading the table with a 2-0 record. Calgary Foothills are in 2nd with a win and a draw. Cavalry is at the bottom with 2 losses, but they did get their first point. They got a tie against Edmonton Scottish, which is promising. Based on our interview with Leon Hapgood a few weeks back, we know that Cavalry's U21 roster is a really young roster, and this is probably a tough division for a lot of those players who are only 16, 17 years old. But a good point against Scottish. What's interesting is on June 9th, so I think the day that this is going to be released, Friday, there is a Calgary derby between Cavalry and Foothills at Macron Center, 5 p.m. So I think that's the first time these two teams will play each other.
Yeah, that should be interesting. And I think right now, like, as we've already discussed and had when we had Leon on the podcast, results are not exactly the primary goal here for the Cavs U21s. But I think without question, Foothills, Foothills is in it to be competitive and win. They're not going to be happy with just gaining experience. They want to actually win matches. And I think when I look up at Edmonton BTB, they seem like they're putting a lot of effort into this. And I've looked at their roster, and I haven't watched 1 minute of any of their matches, but just by looking at their roster, they have got some old FC Edmonton players, and it really does seem like they're putting in a genuine effort to try and get results. So I think those are kind of the two teams right now that I'm kind of expecting that are going to be rising to the top here.
Yeah. And, I think of Foothills is almost the reserve team for Cavalry, and then Cavalry U21s is almost like the youth team below the reserves. So that's not like a perfect comparison, but looking at this match on Friday, it's, if you're in the reserves of a pro team, you don't want to lose to your youth team. That would be a little bit of an embarrassment, I think. So they have something to play for. But like you were saying, as a whole this season, like they're going to be gunning for first place in this brief exhibition series.
And let's go to the women's side and talk about what's going on there.
Yeah, it's a little different in that the two Calgary teams top the table at the moment. So Calgary Blizzard lead with 2 wins and a tie, so they're still unbeaten. And Calgary Foothills is 1-1-1, tied for second at the moment with St. Albert Impact. And Calgary, there's also a Calgary derby on the women's side on Friday with a 7 p.m. kickoff between Blizzard and Foothills at Broadview. So that's that should be a pretty good match between the two teams at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think that would be a great match. And I think right now, when I look at Blizzard, it does seem like they've put a lot of effort into putting together a good team, and it's showing on the pitch at this point. And yeah, these two teams, it should be a good one on Friday night.
Yeah, I would say very comparable to like a U Sports game in the fall in terms of the quality of the league and of this particular game. So definitely one worth watching if you're able to make it out to Broadview tomorrow night. Or I guess by the time you're listening, it would be tonight, 7 p.m.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's segue into the Canadian men's national team, and let's talk about the roster that John Herdman announced. And we have 4 Calgarians on the roster. So take it away, Scott.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to, it was probably our second or third episode when these four were called up to the men's national team's recent camp, and it's the same 4 suspects. So you have Dominic Zator, Victor Latourie, Scott Kennedy, and Sam Adekubi. So the same 4 as we talked about last time. I think if you listen back to that episode, I think if we were to talk about those 4 again, we'd be rehashing quite a lot of what we discussed previously, but no surprise really. And I just hope that Zator and Latourie can get some playing time. I think Kennedy and Adekubi are definitely going to get playing time. They might even be starters, Adekubi especially. But Zator and Latourie haven't played for the men's national team yet. And based on our interview with Zator a few months back, we know how much he wants to. So it would be great to see those 2 players, fulfill a lifelong dream.
Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast by using all the usual podcasting platforms. Head over to our website at yycsoccer.com, where you'll find more info about how to subscribe or to leave a question or comment. And you can follow us on YYC Soccer 403 on Twitter.